So I'd like to call to order this regular board meeting of the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners for the month of November. The first item of what we need to do is to suspend our remote attendance policy pursuant to Illinois Public Act 101-0640 so that all commissioners can attend remotely. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote is required, and we will do that in reverse seniority order. Roger?
Aye.
LaShonda?
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
Nancy? You need to unmute, Nancy. You're going to vote? Okay, well, I saw a thumbs up, so I'm going to take that as a sign of yes. And I vote in the affirmative as well. So we have suspended our policy and thereby allowed all commissioners to attend remotely. The next item up for business is a public hearing for the truth in taxation. And the Board of Commissioners of the Urbana Park District of Champaign County, Illinois now opens a public hearing on the 10th of November, 2020 at 7:04 p.m. And this hearing is being held unusually, both via Zoom and there's a physical location at the Planning and Operations Facility at 1011 East Kerr Avenue in Urbana. The purpose of the hearing will be to consider, to receive public comments on the proposed levy ordinance for the coming year. We have done all the appropriate advertising. I'm sure many have seen the black box that was in the newspaper that was there within the time window. You can't put it in too soon, you can't put it in too late in order to qualify. So having put that forward, is there anyone from the public interested in addressing the board at this public hearing? I am seeing no indication of that. Tim, you're at P&O facilities, or anybody that you have seen there?
There's nobody here, nobody indicating they would like to speak.
Okay. Seeing that there is nobody here from the public wishing to make comments, I will declare this hearing closed. We can then move on to the next item on our agenda, which is to accept the agenda for the remainder of the evening. There is a suggested modification as we have a potential consultant with us. We would like to accommodate Mr. Coleman so that he doesn't have to stick around through some of our other business before he can sign off. Is there a motion to amend the agenda and then accept that amended agenda, which is moving item Roman numeral 9 of new business up behind the public comment section?
I move to adjust the order of the agenda to move new business item A, Roman numeral 9 as well, to immediately after public comment.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the point? Again, a roll call vote is necessary in these all remote situations, starting with Roger.
Aye.
LaShonda.
Aye.
Meredith.
Aye.
Nancy.
Aye.
And I also vote in the affirmative, so that carries unanimously. That moves us then to public comment, and first part of public comment is separate from the truth and taxation issue. Is there anyone here wishing to address the board?
Michael, Charlie Smythe here.
Hi, Charlie.
Good evening, everybody. Hopefully, staff passed around, I think I sent it to Judy earlier today, a short note from me and Audrey concerning our gardening experience this year. I see Tim's nodding his head. If you haven't gotten it, please ask for it. Anyway, a couple of pictures from the garden. We had a much better year. It's a year comparable to 3 or 4 years ago when we were getting pretty decent output and pretty decent produce and stuff. We still need to do some work. There's some places where clearly, fertility is still lacking, but that's just a matter of, keeping on working with the compost and the manure. So that's been invaluable to have back out there again. So I really want to thank the board and staff for making that happen. It made this year's hard work in the garden worthwhile. So I appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing plans for next year and going forward. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your comments, Charlie. It's always nice to hear when somebody is coming forward to comment when they have had a positive experience.
Yeah, well, we said negative things earlier this year. You responded. It's appropriate that we thank you for making things happen. So it's been a much more enjoyable year. And the fall has been great. I mean, the weather has been, with this weather, we've had just this extended growing season. We have greens like, it happens every once in a while. You have a nice fall like this. We have wonderful greens out there. And we also have a great vole population too, but that's another problem.
Okay.
Anyway,
thanks.
thank you.
Is there anyone else here from the public wishing to address the board? Seeing no indication of that, and I assume, Tim, there is no one at the P&O facility.
That is correct. No one choosing to speak. Nobody's present.
Okay. Then we'll move on from public comments. There are no staff introductions this evening, as I understand it. So let's move on to the IAPD Best of the Best Awards.
I'll start out. I think we have other staff that will add to this. First thing up, we have Meredith Lumthall's 10-year board service award. We've got it here. Obviously, I won't open it and show it. That will be for her to do, but just want to thank Meredith for her long-term service. 10 years is an amazing accomplishment. We all know, she knows how hard and diligent board members work. They do a lot of things behind the scenes, spend a lot of time with staff, with our advisory committee, working with our foundation. But we just simply say thank you, Meredith, and we look forward to moving ahead in the future with you.
Thank you. Doesn't seem like it's been 10 years, so time flies.
Bravo, Meredith.
Congratulations.
I think the next item, I think Janet is going to speak on.
Yes, I said that I would talk about the awards that we nominated our local online magazine for. Was the Top Journalist Award. So the Park District nominated Smile Politely, and I thought it was pretty fitting. We had to, because it's a virtual event this year, we had to record acceptance speeches. Ordinarily you get all jazzed up and dressed up and go up to the burbs and have, a big fancy event. So they're doing a virtual event, which actually is this Thursday at 7 on YouTube, that I'm sure a lot of you saw that IAPD shared. So they sent us a Dropbox folder and we had to record our own speeches and upload them to Dropbox. And so I'll be really interested to see how that plays out. But I did the one for Smile Politely. And I think the day after I turned in my speech, they featured Carl Park in their series that they've been doing. They declared 2020 the year of the park. And I don't know if you all saw it, but it had some really neat drone footage of Carl Park. And Seth Fine wrote a very loving tribute to that park, and particularly to the care that the Park District takes of the grounds and the park and the nature and character of that park and what it does for the neighborhood. It's really well written, and it's pretty nice if you want to see that. And then Ashley recorded a speech about the Partnership Award, and that was for the Carl Foundation. and what they did for us and allowing us to be able to purchase Urbana and outfit it and be able to bring recreation and fun out to the neighborhood. So those were the two speeches that we recorded that will be included in their gala event, where they suggested people get dressed up in their black tie event and have a watch party. I wonder how many people will do that, but I'll definitely tune in. I think it was always really neat. In fact, when we went last year, because we won the Arts in the Park Award, we actually came out of there with some ideas for programs and stuff that other places, other districts had done. And we were like, hey, we could pull that off and we should start talking about that. So Ellen and I, we came out of there with Nikki and we had some ideas. It was really fun.
I'd just like to add with the Carl funds, the importance of what that's been able to do for us as a park district reaching our community. Yeah, the first year we were able to do Urbana, and I think we gave away probably like $26,000 of free scholarships as we were doing outreach in our neighborhoods. This year, with COVID, it's played a huge part in giving our kids in our neighborhoods our activity kits. It's helped Chelsea do some things with the schools. Again, as a way of activity bags. And it's just been phenomenal. So what a fantastic partnership it's been. And in these times of COVID, what a relief it's been for us to be able to provide some opportunities for our community. So
yeah, for free. It's been great.
Yeah. It's a big boost in what we were able to do.
Well, and you guys have done it in such an imaginative and clever way that I think that it's almost doubled the worth of the monetary gift from Carl, because it hasn't just kind of seeped into various places. It's really been made public in a quite an entrancing way. So, yeah. Congratulations. I'll pat ourselves on the back. I think we've made the best use of that money that we could. Really, you guys have really done a great job.
One last thing I would say about the Journalist Award, like it kind of makes us realize how lucky we are here in Champaign-Urbana. You know, so many park districts are up in the suburbs. And so they're in Chicagoland. They don't get the media coverage that we do. And so, you know, how much we get to get on the air and have reporters actually come out to our events and film remotes, and us get to go, like Judy gets to go take an owl into a studio, or, you know, the amount of like press coverage that we get in our Champaign-Urbana, I think most park districts would just die to get the kind of coverage that we get. So it's been really great to be able to, that's 2 years in a row that we've gotten one of those journalist awards. Thanks.
Terrific. Thank you.
Good job.
Well, yeah, it's great for staff to reach out and apply for these awards for deserving community members. Okay, that moves us on then to the item that we moved up to the front of the agenda. So under new business, item A, introducing a draft of a Coleman and Associates minority and women-owned business enterprise proposal. So,
great, thank you, Michael. I just want to introduce Fred Coleman to you all. He'll be speaking in a little bit. I'm sure Derek will want to say some introductory things too, but just as an intro, I just wanted to remind the board, staff's working as hard and far and deep and wide as we can with our You Belong Here initiatives. One of the things that we determined, and in fact, kind of came through a board comments, could we start taking a look at how we bid projects and how we buy things and what our procurement sort of process is? Are there more opportunities to get women and minority owned businesses involved with that? And so we think we've made some good strides, connected with Fred. He's got a lot of experience working with a lot of different groups in this area. He's in this area, so that's another added advantage. And so we're tonight going to hear from Fred. He's going to talk a little more about the proposal. I believe there are probably dollar amounts, within staff authority, but we really want to let the whole public know too that we're trying to do things different. We're kind of taking some new turns and really want to explore this and make sure we're doing everything that our You Belong Here message includes. And so with that, I'll maybe turn over to Derek. I didn't know if you had anything to line us up with, Derek.
Sure, absolutely. So I know we've reported to you all in the past few months on our progress in moving forward with a couple of different initiatives so we can increase our procurement opportunities for minority and women-owned businesses. We're here primarily to talk about our pre-qualified provider program this evening, but also want to introduce the topic of how we might go about bidding larger contracted projects and even the health and wellness facility in the future. We've been working with Fred for a while now, and he's been very helpful. I consider him to be an expert on this topic, and he's helped a lot of other agencies develop their own programs. On the pre-qualified provider program, you may recall that this is a program that the district developed, I'm going to say it was about 6 years ago, and it was developed for contracts that are less than $25,000 that don't become publicly bid. And it was a way for us to invite contractors to submit their qualifications to us, their availability, their history of working with the Park District through an application that was developed in tandem with Neil Strack from Architectural Spectrum. It's been a very useful program. We get these applications and we score them, and then we have a series of go-to contractors that we call for small projects. What we're proposing this evening, and we're working with Fred on, is a spin-off of that program. We're calling it the Preferred Provider Program. So we have pre-qualified providers. Well, this is the Preferred Provider Program. And so working with Fred to identify existing minority and women-owned business enterprise contractors in our area that have been pre-certified, either through the state of Illinois or through the City of Champaign site, that would be well suited to work with us on projects that we routinely dole out through our existing program to try to increase their participation in our more frequent procurement initiatives. And I invite Fred to talk a little bit more about that program initially, and then we can talk a little bit more about future projects as well. So with that, Fred, would you like to introduce the topic of what you're proposing to do for the Park District?
Sure. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Tim. And thank you to the Urbana Park District Board for providing me the opportunity to meet with you tonight and talk a little bit about the Preferred Provider Program proposal. This proposal that I've drafted and that I would hope that I would have the ability to work with the administration on is geared toward increasing the pool of minority and women business enterprises that would become pre-qualified with the Urbana Park District to actually work in the pre-qualified provider program. And so it's really essentially an effort to reach out to the minority and women business enterprise community for the kinds of goods and services that the Urbana Park District has been utilizing in the community, and to engage minority and women business enterprises to become pre-qualified. And also part of my effort is to assist them if they need help with becoming pre-qualified, but also to work with the Urbana Park District Administration to, when they are given an opportunity, when minority and women business enterprises are given an opportunity, to have them receive feedback so that they can continue to deliver the kinds of quality goods and services and experiences that the Urbana Park District expects from them. So it's really to identify them, help them get into the program, and then to help with their receiving the kind of feedback that will help them grow and be very good service providers. The participants would be minority and women business enterprises that are certified by the state of Illinois Central Management Services Business Enterprise Program, which is quite an extensive certification to become certified as a minority and women business enterprise. And the certification is geared toward making sure that they are the owners of their business, that they have the technical expertise and background to run their business, and that they are truly involved in the management and operation of their business. That, in other words, they are not an entity that is purporting to be owned by a minority or women business enterprise. The city of Champaign has a program similar to the state's of Illinois Central Management Services Business Enterprise Program, where vendors go through a process to verify that they are in fact the owners of their business. And so I plan on using both of those databases to identify minority and women business enterprises for the kinds of goods and services that are routinely utilized by the Urbana Park District.
Fred, I think when we first talked with you about the Champaign list, you shared that it's a list that's maybe not quite as, or the process isn't quite as difficult for certification as the state, but being a local agency with local knowledge of contractors, they're able to independently verify without the steep requirements of the state. And so it's a little bit of a, it removes a barrier from participation in some ways for
yes.
contractors.
Yes, and that was the intent of the city of Champaign moving forward with their certification program, was to lower some of the barriers with respect to becoming certified, but still requiring a sufficient level of verification to allow the agencies to become comfortable with the fact that, yes, they are a minority-owned or women-owned and operated business enterprise.
Thank you, Fred. I'd like to invite the board to ask any questions about this particular aspect of our procurement program. And then once we've sort of wrapped up this topic, talk a little bit about future opportunities we want to work with Fred on. Does the board have any questions for Fred about this aspect of our program?
What are some current potential minority-owned businesses that could be identified to work with the Park District, if that makes sense?
So what might be some of the names of some of those businesses?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there are a variety. And so, you know, for example, there's a business that's involved in demolition. There's a business that's involved in trucking. There's a business that's involved in construction cleaning. There are some businesses that are electrical contractors. There are businesses that are HVAC contractors. There are businesses that provide masonry work. So there's a pretty decent pool of minority and women business enterprises that are looking for opportunities, particularly at the scale and scope that so far I'm aware of that the Urbana Park District does utilize with respect to their pre-qualified provider program. So it's really it has the potential for being a very good fit with the kinds of services and skill sets and experiences that between the two databases, the pools of vendors, could be a very good fit with Urbana Park District.
Okay, so they would be on a lower scale, not like a larger scale, like Bourne Russo or something like that. They would be more like I don't know, like an alternate bidder on a project or something like that.
Well, they would actually, my understanding is that the Urbana Park District in their pre-qualified provider program, they have the ability to solicit bids and to choose what vendor they would like to go forward with. And because the program, they use the program for work that is typically $25,000 and lower, those would tend to be smaller services or construction projects or repair or maintenance or very small remodel kinds of work. And so that's, and it would be considered somewhere in the category of light commercial construction work or remodel work. And so that fits well with a lot of the skill sets and experience and capabilities of the pool of contractors that potentially could be service providers to the Urbana Park District. So yes, your statement is correct. It's not big construction. It's not major construction. It's work that is below the $25,000 threshold that this program has been operating under.
Thank you.
Let's say I'm a mason, which is an interesting thought. Then how would I go about getting myself on this list, and how would the Park District say when we needed to finish that kiosk at the pool, decided that we needed a mason to help with that stone setting? How would I find you, and then how would you find me?
If you were the minority and women business enterprise masonry person?
Yeah, but how do I get to be?
Oh.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
So see, I already have my masonry business. How are you going to find me to add me to your list? And then how is the Park District going to find me from your list?
I understand your question. So typically, that minority and women business enterprise, they understand that one of the ways in which they can market their business is to become certified with one of these two lists that I mentioned.
All right.
And so they would have an incentive to become certified with one of those two agencies.
Yep.
And therefore their name and their business and their credentials would be on that list. Then what I do is I go through and I match the kinds of goods and services that the Urbana Park District is seeking with the vendors on those two lists who have similar goods and services. And therefore, I'm able to identify them. I use their contact information to reach out to them. I encourage them and invite them to information sharing sessions to learn more about the program and to meet with staff if necessary, and to describe the kinds of work that they may become involved or engaged in, so that then they're able to make a decision that, yes, this is something that is a good opportunity for me, and I need to move forward on moving through the pre-qualification application.
I see. Thank you.
I have two questions, I think. One, I'm just curious if you can share if there are any type of general statistics in sort of working with the city of Urbana or Champaign. Did they see that they were having, let's say, 0 minority-owned or women businesses, and now they're working with you, they're up to 25% or 10% or something? Are there any generalities around those numbers that you've seen?
No, there isn't, because the reason I'm not able to provide those statistics on an agency basis or program-wide basis is that, in this area, in this community, with the exception of the University of Illinois, many local agencies are just at the cusp of starting these kinds of programs. And actually, Urbana Park District will be one of the few agencies in the area that's looking at this in a sort of a holistic manner to say, here's a program where we're routinely buying goods and services, and let's, work to become more inclusive of minority and women business enterprises, so that over time, those kinds of statistics can be provided. So most often, large agencies in this area, if they have a large significant project, then they will tend to work to include minority and women business enterprise goals in a large capital construction project. And then, those utilization percentages can be reported out. But on a program basis, no, everyone is just really getting started in this regard.
And then I guess my second question is, it sounds like this is a little bit like a train the trainer. That's part of the equity, part of the proposal, if I'm reading it correctly. Is that right? You're working with us, but at some point you've trained us in how this process works, and yes, we're going to implement it moving forward as a district. Okay, just wanted to make sure I understood that.
Yes, that's correct. you know, my role is to, you know, work with staff to show them how the program operates and to put in those touchstones, those touch points, and maybe some procedures or processes that they will be able to use going forward, and therefore keep the program moving forward.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Derek, this is more of a question for you. I've heard two terms used, pre-qualified and preferred. I'm assuming that all of the people that we're considering are pre-qualified. And so will there be a preference for using minority and women-owned businesses? Is that the intent?
That's the intent, Roger. Yeah, the pre-qualified provider program is the one we currently have, and it's part of our policy, our purchasing policy, and this would be an addition or a layer on top of that, where we would have a preferred status for minority contractors. So, or we'd always go to this first to see if there's a good fit.
That's great.
Derek, before you move on to, sorry, I was going to ask, before Derek moves on to the larger project or the next phases of our work with Fred, I just wanted to invite Fred to describe some of his background. He has a unique background, and just to let the board know a little bit more about him, and not just about this proposal, but we really enjoyed meeting with him and talking to him, and I just wanted to invite Fred to speak a little bit about himself.
Oh, well, thank you, Katie. I don't normally talk about myself very much, but just to provide some background information. I'm a civil engineer by background, PhD in civil engineering, and for the last I retired from the University of Illinois in 2015 as the Director of Diversity for Capital Programs for the University of Illinois system. And I was the inaugural director of that program, meaning that I was charged with the responsibility of building the program to include minority and women business enterprises in architecture, engineering, and construction, to help the university comply with state laws to meet the goals the state had set for the utilization of minority and women business enterprises in the architecture, engineering, and construction industry on University of Illinois projects for both design and construction. I was in that role for 6 years, developed the program, rolled it out, and we met our goals from the very beginning of that program, which at that time was 15% MWBE utilization in Urbana-Champaign and 22% utilization in the Chicago campus area. Very successful. As I mentioned, we met our goals each year. A lot of work because it was starting from scratch. It was working very hard to identify good partners for majority prime architects and majority prime contractors to work with, as well as recruiting minority and women business enterprises to participate in the program and to help them develop partnerships and good working relationships with the many pre-existing service providers to the University of Illinois. So prior to my work that I retired from in 2015, I was a faculty member in the College of Business and Supply Chain Management program for 3 years. And prior to that, faculty member in the Department of Civil Environmental Engineering at the University of Illinois. Any questions?
That's pretty impressive. Yeah. I have another question. What kind of a pool do we have of folks who will be able to participate in this program? Is it a pretty good sized pool, or are we looking at fairly small?
That's a good question, and I appreciate your asking that question. I took a quick look at the City of Champaign database, And I was able, they have roughly about 200 total minority and women business enterprises in their database. And I was able to identify about, I'd say 30 or 40 that may be potential service providers to the Urbana Park District.
Great.
I'm a little curious. It sounds like you did not help Champaign develop their program. Is that correct?
I worked with the city of Champaign on the UC2B project. I did that sort of pro bono with the city of Champaign when I was with the University of Illinois. I helped them with their construction bidding documents to include the language and program and processes to achieve the goals that were set for the utilization of minority and women business enterprises. And we were, and that included both minority and women business enterprise goals as well as workforce utilization goals. And working with a good committee and a good team, we were able to put together the kinds of processes and procedures that allowed the city of Champaign to meet the goals that were associated with the UC2B project. So that sort of put the city of Champaign on a pathway to move forward with developing their own program. It took them several years after my engagement with them on the UC2B project to finally put a program in place. And I think they finally got a program in place about 3 or 4 years ago.
And I'm curious to know what percentage of the businesses on their list are actually located in this community. Are they local businesses, or, I mean, for our kind of job, somebody's not going to come down from Chicago for a $25,000 job.
Right.
No, just offhand, I'd say it's about 90% local.
Good.
Yeah, I would agree that when I was looking for a concrete contractor, there were several that I looked at. Most were in the Champaign-Urbana area. A few were in kind of rural Champaign County.
And Derek, we were able to get a concrete contractor to do a pad, right, for sculpture?
Yeah, a pair of pads. It was Davis & Davis Contracting. And when I was talking with them about the work, they asked how I found about them. And I told them about the City of Champaign list. And I mentioned we were working with Fred Coleman, and they knew Fred. And I took both of those as a very good sign. So they did great work. Yeah.
That's good to hear. That's amazing.
Well, I also want to talk with, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry to keep interjecting this. It would seem to me that it would be great if locally it was more than just a list maintained by Champaign that's involved here. I mean, I understand we are not a very big agency and we don't have as much work as some of the others. But I'm curious, Mr. Coleman, where you see this going forward as to how we might get more agencies involved in it so that a list could grow and have more qualified enterprises available for us.
Sure. Well, you know, that's a very good thought, Mr. Walker, and I appreciate you sharing that. You know, I'm the chair of the Champaign County Economic Development Corporation this year. And I'll be rolling off at the end of this year in June 2021. But we just developed a strategic plan. And our strategic plan has several key strategic objectives. And one of our key strategic objectives is to make sure that we are being the EDC, the Economic Development Corporation, working with many partners and stakeholders in the community, are working to become inclusive of minority and women business enterprises, and to make sure that we're working to have as many agencies as possible provide opportunities. So one of the things that we've listed as a sub-objective is to encourage as many local agencies as possible to move forward with developing a minority and women business enterprise utilization program, similar to what I'm suggesting with your preferred provider program, as well as the work that I've performed for the University of Illinois when I was a staff member there. So hopefully other agencies will take heed and will listen and will adopt best practices to move forward so that we can grow a part of the business community that typically is sort of marginalized when it comes to mainstream procurement opportunities.
Brett, I had a quick question. Did you share with us the city of Urbana was going to be signing on with the city of Champaign's approach? I thought we'd heard that through the city staff. I don't know if that's...
I'm not, I know the city of Urbana has requirements with respect to their redevelopment program. And so I have been utilized by the city of Urbana to assist them with helping real estate developers establish minority and women business enterprise goals for the funds that the city provides to developers to redevelop large projects within the city of Urbana. And so that is part of their legislative code, if you will. And so I do get called on to participate as a consultant to assist those developers on those projects. But I'm not aware that the city of Urbana has developed an ongoing program similar to Champaign's CDAP, I think it's called Champaign Diversity Advancement Program. So I'm not aware that the city of Urbana has formalized a program that is similar to the city of Champaign CDAP program.
And what we heard from Carol Mitten at the city of Urbana is that they're in the process of negotiating, working with the city of Champaign on a IGA where they would begin to work with the CDAP program from the city of Champaign, but I think it's still very early in that process.
This is slightly off. Are these businesses that regular folks who say needed a new driveway poured, if you're talking about concrete work? I mean, they don't work just completely with governmental agencies, right? So is there a way that the regular citizen could access this information?
I'm not sure. It is a public database that you can go to and download. Mm-hmm. And so in that sense, yes, a regular citizen could access it and use it if they chose to.
Would these companies work for just regular citizens? I guess yes. As much as my question. So it's not that these companies are just looking for work with, larger projects, bigger groups.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Good. That's good to know. Thank you.
I also want to talk a little bit about future work we envision and working with Fred on. And I touched on it briefly in the memo. The first is what I'll call more typical bid contracts, those that are over $25,000, ranging up to, I don't know, $500,000, $800,000, like the Blair Park project. And we did look at Blair Park with Fred and continue to in terms of what we can do relatively quickly to encourage minority participation in that project. The challenge is that we'll want to update our contractual language, our bid specifications to make sure that everything we're doing meets legal approval. And Fred has some familiar with Matt Deering, but the time is somewhat short. That project's going to bid in early January. And so we're looking at the potential of focusing more on encouraging an outreach to the minority and women-owned business contractors, similar to what we'll do with our preferred provider program, and encouraging them to participate, making sure they're familiar with our pre-bid meetings and our opportunities there. We want to engage with Fred and not daring to talk about the contractual side, if not for Blair Park, for future projects. What we know from talking with Upland Design, which is our designer for the Blair Park project, is when they've worked with Chicago Park District on some projects, Chicago is the only other park district I'm aware of that has a minority and women-owned business enterprise procurement program in place. The Chicago Park District basically provides the design team with all the contractual language to that they have pre-vetted and made work. And we're waiting on a copy of that from Upland to share with Fred that may become part of the basis for our program. But we don't want to rush this and make a misstep. And so we'll continue to look at this carefully. At a minimum, we want to encourage participation in Blair, and there may be even more that we can do. Looking even further out and at a bigger project, Fred referenced how oftentimes for large capital projects, agencies will engage with him or with others to help to establish goals for minority participation on a project like that. And Fred's done some of that work, and it often involves working with a construction manager, perhaps a GC, early on with the architectural team and the agency to develop these goals and work hand in hand as a project enters even in some of the design stages to make sure we've got all the pieces in place. And so if we're so lucky to build the health and wellness facility, we're waiting with bated breath on the grant news. We're eager to engage with Fred on that as well. And I wanted to give Fred an opportunity to talk about some of the work he's done on some of these larger projects and how that might look for the Urbana Park District. Fred, can you talk a little bit about a few of the projects you've done?
Sure. So as I mentioned, in terms of my background working for the University of Illinois on large capital construction projects, just to give you an example, the State Farm Center was in the neighborhood of about over $100 million in capital construction. And it was managed by a construction manager, Turner Construction. And one of the things I had to do was I had to work closely with Turner to identify the bid packages that they were going to be putting on the street for contractors to bid on. And each one of those bid packages had a 15% minority and women business enterprise utilization goal. And there ended up being something in the neighborhood of about 15 or 16 very large bid packages. And so my role was to, through working with Turner and receiving advanced information about what those bid packages were, both in terms of size, scope, complexity, was to work with the minority and women business enterprise community and the prime contracting community to make them mutually aware of the expectations by the university that the MWBE goals were very important and there's a very high expectation for them to be met. And my role in part was to make sure that there was a large and significant pool of experienced, capable minority and women business enterprise contractors to work with prime contractors and the construction manager to deliver that project on time and on schedule. And we were successful in doing that. And so, for example, with your health and wellness facility that everyone has their fingers crossed on, it would be a similar kind of approach where working with the architects and engineers and either construction manager or general contractor to identify the bid packages and scopes of work they're in, and to use that information to identify the types of minority and women business enterprise firms that should be able to contribute to the delivery of that project based on their skills, their experience, and to have that project delivered for you on time. So it's very similar to what I've done in the past. I've developed a lot of contacts, networks, credibility with a large number of minority and women business enterprise firms from my work with them at the university, as well as in my work now with Coleman and Associates. And so they respect me. They tend to respond well. We have a good relationship, and they know that typically if I'm working with an agency, that there's very real opportunity for them. And so they are very much in tune with seeking to be a part of those teams and deliver for that client. Any questions?
I do have one question that's a little bit unrelated to that, but the way this document is written up, it suggests starting about the turn of the year, and I'm wondering, is there that much in the way of I's to dot and T's to cross for us to get started that we couldn't do so sooner?
Talking about the preferred provider program, Michael?
No, engaging with Coleman and Associates. Why would we want to wait another 6 or 8 weeks in doing?
I think we're ready to move forward. We just wanted to review with you all and make sure you all were comfortable moving forward. The preferred provider proposal, we're as Tim indicated, it's within staff spending authority. Fred, I honestly can't remember when we established that date what we were thinking, other than that we thought there might be some protracted discussion and making sure we get it all dialed in before we move forward. But I think we're a lot closer today than when we were in earlier discussions.
Yeah, I don't see any major issues holding us back. You know, I would simply be looking at taking what's the heart of the proposal and putting that into an agreement and shipping you an agreement, and you and your legal counsel will review that and we tweak it if necessary. And, you know, within a week or two, we should be in a position to move forward.
I had a question about the proposed fee structure. Could you explain to me what equity in the PPP, the $3,000 charge, I don't understand what that means. Okay.
So one of the things that, and this is still to be, you know, I'm still working with the administration. So when I say working with the administration is really understanding how they administer the program. But one of the things that that I had to look at and think about when I wrote the proposal was that the Urbana Park District has a set of current service providers. They have people in the pool. Sure. So what has to be worked out is now you're going to bring new people into the pool. And part of the intent of the, as I understand it at this point, of the Urbana Park District Administration is to begin to utilize some of these minority and business enterprises. And frankly, we haven't had a conversation to say, well, exactly how are you going to do that? Okay. And so I use the term equity to say, well, you know, if you're really going to bring them in and you have pre-existing service providers, are you going to rotate? You know, are you going to draw a random number? How are you going to make that assignment? You know, are you going to say, well, I'm going to solicit three quotes and go with the one that is reasonable? You know, so it's really, you know, using the word equity is saying, well, how are we going to make that selection? How are we going to make that choice? And at the end of the day, when we make those choices, are we going to have numbers that says, well, you know, we started this program and we're receiving the benefits that we hope to intend from this program. And so that means that, you know, there has to be some conscious decision-making in terms of how you're going to make selections for the service providers, particularly the new ones that are coming in. Did I answer your question? I want to make sure I answered your question.
Yep.
Okay.
Michael, I wanted to loop back on one of your earlier comments and suggestions, and that is, working with other agencies. And I recall that at a previous board meeting, you suggested the same. And when we talked with Carol Mitten at the City of Urbana about where they are with their program, she shared with us a draft IGA that she has with the City of Champaign for their CDAP program. We can certainly loop back with Carol and let her know, where we are in our process and see if there's an opportunity to cross-engage. I think our procurement's a little bit different than the City of Urbana, just in terms of, what our thresholds are and types of services we routinely contract out, but we should certainly investigate it more. And that might be something we want to do in a bit more detail with your encouragement.
Well, again, my point is basically we want a larger pool of appropriate businesses like this available in our community, and spreading the work around. I mean, spreading the work of multiple agencies around, I think, is the only way to truly accomplish that to the maximum degree.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Any other questions for me?
Fred, I just wanted to say we really appreciate how responsive you've been to us. Fred's been available. We've had phone calls. Derek's followed up many, many times. So I think tonight was, our hope was to kind of get this front and center, get the board informed of what our intentions are, answer any questions that we could have, but certainly get back to this draft and get it finalized and get things moving.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Dr. Coleman.
Thank you, LaShonda.
We'll look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Likewise here. I am delighted that somebody of your experience and expertise is available to help us out in this kind of endeavor.
Thank you, Michael.
All right. Appreciate that. I think that takes care of that item. Fred, we'll be looping back to you shortly, right away.
Okay, thank you.
Good night, Fred.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks
A pleasure meeting you.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, that puts us now at item Roman numeral 5, the UPTAC report. We had a written report in our packets there. Were there any questions, comments, other things about the UPTAC report?
No. I'd say that one of the most interesting things about working with UPTAC is to discover how little of the things that we do that aren't, directly impacting most families do our citizens know about. It's quite remarkable, and it's interesting to see from their reactions at the meeting. Oh, wow, you do that? They do this? Oh my gosh. They have no idea. And and especially with CUSR, it's not a surprise if you don't know someone engaged in that program who's using its services, you probably don't know it's there. And yet it's such a vital part of the community. It's really great that we share that with them. I was really glad that we did that.
Any other comments or questions on the UPTAC report? Hearing none, then we can move on to our consent agenda for the evening. And on tonight's consent agenda is approval of the minutes of the October 6th board study session meeting. approval of the minutes of the October 13 regular board meeting, the receipt of the regular departmental reports, approval of the monthly paid accounts payable, and action to accept the philanthropy report and gifts listed with gratitude. There being one rather large bequest included in that list, which I had not been aware of and was pleased to learn of. Under our rules of the consent agenda, it is the right of any single commissioner to remove any or all of these items from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. Is there any commissioner wanting to remove anything from the consent agenda this evening? I'm seeing no indication of that. So unless somebody raises their hand quickly, I think I'm prepared now to ask, is there a motion that we approve the items on the consent agenda in an omnibus fashion?
So moved.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. And under the rules of our consent agenda, at this point, there is to be no further discussion. So we can go immediately to a roll call vote, starting with Roger.
Aye.
LaShonda.
Aye.
Meredith.
Aye.
Nancy.
Aye.
And I vote in the affirmative as well, and so that passes unanimously. Which takes us on now to Roman numeral 7, reports. First item being financial reports.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I have a new technique. I know I had some technical issues last time, so I phone in and I think that helps. So I've got the financial reports for October to share with you tonight. And so the first report that I'm going to review is the revenue and expenditure report. This report shows the receipts and expenditures for the prior 12-month period, the budget for the current period, and the preliminary unaudited results for the 6 months ending October 31st, 2020. Sum 1, which is the first page of this report, is all funds except for the Capital Improvements Fund. Revenues for this period were $7,416,000, which is an increase of $3,514,000 since September. $6.7 million of total revenues are property taxes, and we've received 5 property tax distributions thus far for levy year 2019. We're still expecting several more smaller distributions to finish out the year. We're only at 89%. So there's a couple more payments that'll trickle in. The biggest difference in revenues between this year and last year has been in our earned revenues, which is represented in this fees line. You could see what the total year was right here for the entire fiscal year, but I ran a report, and the amount of revenue that we earned in FY20 from May 1st through October 31st, 2019 was $823,000, which is for fees, which is programs and rental charges. And that's about $702,000 more than at this same point in the year of the current year. So we all know that's due to COVID, but we have started earning some revenues. We have $121,000 in revenues that have come in since the beginning of the fiscal year, and staff are really doing their best to get programs going safely and with the COVID restrictions in place. So, and so far, all of our forecasts look okay with the way things are. So I'm going to move on to expenditures, the expenditure section of this report. Expenditures for this period were $3,536,000, which is a change of $815,000 since September. We have a surplus after 6 months. This means that there was an excess in revenues over expenditures paid of $3,880,000. Moving on to sum 2, this page, which is the second page of the report, this page shows only the Capital Improvements Fund. Total revenues for this period were $84,000. and total expenditures were $864,000. Expenditures exceed revenues at this point in the year, and this leaves a net decrease in the fund of the capital improvement fund of $780,000. And finally, sum 3 is all funds district-wide. It takes the first 2 pages of this report and adds them together. And at this point in the year, the ending fund balance for the whole district is $18,914,000. Following that are the summary pages for the main working funds, the general fund, the recreation fund, the museum fund, and the indoor pool. Does anybody have any questions about that report before I move on to the treasurer's report? Okay. Just stop my share so that you didn't have to watch the scrolling to get down to the next page. So, all right. So this is the first page of the treasurer's report. The treasurer's report is a report of the amount of cash that the Park District has on one day, October 31st, 2020. All 24 funds are listed with where the cash is invested. And we have a grand total for October, on October 31st of $18,760,707.31. On page 2, the top section of this page lists funds that are out in interest-bearing accounts. So of the $18,761,000, $17,005,000 is invested in interest-bearing accounts, and the interest rates are just they're horrible. I can get a 0.05% CD for a year. I mean, it's just awful. So, but we do have some laddered CDs that we're still benefiting from the interest rates that we were able to lock into before COVID hit. So that's kind of some of the reason that we have some of these higher interest rates still represented here. But every time one of those CDs matures, then I go to reinvest it. It's bringing down the average. There were no changes to interfund loans this period. And on the third page lists all disbursements that were made for the Park District. And the vendor payments match the paid accounts payable report on the consent agenda. And total disbursements of funds for October was $1,446,000. And this is a little bit more than usual. And I just wanted to point out that we made our first payment to Stark, which was over $600,000 out of the Capital Improvements Fund for the first chunk of the construction on the Crystal Lake Rehab project. So that was a big chunk of total spending for the month. And then the other fund that had unusually high amount of spending, it's not unusual annually, but it's unusual monthly, is in the liability fund where we renew our liability insurance policy every October. And it's around $170,000. So that's something that we do every year, but it's not something that you would normally see every month on this report. So that's why the total's a little unusual. And I present the treasurer's report to you for approval.
I move we accept the treasurer's report for audit.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or questions on the point? Hearing none, again, roll call is required with a remote attendance for this, starting with Roger.
Aye.
LaShonda.
Aye.
Meredith.
Aye.
Nancy.
Aye.
And I vote in the affirmative as well, so that passes unanimously.
Okay, great. Well, I will review very quickly the activity and the capital projects budget. So in the Series 2019A capital projects budget, we had expenses paid towards the Crystal Lake one-way road system project. In the 2020 capital budget, as Michael pointed out, a donation was received as an estate gift from the Brighton family. And at this point, that doesn't have a designated purpose. So that's something that staff and probably the finance study group will be discussing at a future meeting. But I just have a project TBA down here while we determine what that was for, since it wasn't expected and we hadn't planned for that. Expenditures in this budget were paid for tributes and also for water quality improvements at Crystal Lake. In the 2019 capital budget, a transfer was recognized, sorry for the highlighting, from the museum fund for the amount spent on the interpretive exhibit down below. And also the final installment of revenues was received from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources for the saline rock riffle habitat improvement project. Here, this $33,000 was received in October. And on the expenditure side, expenditures were paid towards tributes. A heater was purchased at the lake house out of the mechanical replacement schedule line. And final expenses were paid for the Leal Park project for striping and an additional archaeological study that had to be done in order to proceed with some of the landscaping around the parking lot and the gazebo. Sorry, and then expenses were also paid on the Crystal Lake rehab project towards the OSLAD portion of the OSLAD features that are related to the project. So that's where this grant just happens to be in this particular budget year. In the 2018 capital budget, expenditures occurred on construction crew projects, and a little bit of the Leal Park project was also coded down to the contingency line here at the bottom. That one exceeded the budget that was available in the prior budget, so it just spilled over. And then finally, in the 2017 and 2016 capital budgets, there was only activity on the CLP rehab project, but here's the 2017, but I'm very excited to announce that in the 2016 budget, because of that $600,000 payment that we made to Stark, all of the 2016 budget is now spent. We are at zero. So you will receive one less page of capital budget reports going forward from this point forward.
Saved half a tree.
And we have spent the $500,000 transfer that the board committed in 2016 towards Crystal Lake. So the money has been well spent, and I think Andy now will have some updates on capital improvements to share with you, and some of that may include some of the progress there.
Thank you, Katie. I'll actually start with the Blair improvements project. Our staff team held a site visit with our design group, Upland Design, at Blair Park, and then conducted a 90% review meeting this morning with Upland and ERA. We've updated layouts of the proposed path alignments and began finalizing plans and specifications to be able to submit to the city for review in the next week or so. As I mentioned before, our schedule is still on target. We're planning to have the bid let on January 5th with an opening and recommendation for award to the board at the regular February board meeting, and then construction scheduled to begin April of 2021, and likely will be concluding in early fall of the same year. And going to Crystal Lake Park, Katie had mentioned the additional funds that we received for the saline project. It's actually ready to move in that final phase of construction. That funding was provided from U.S. Fish and Wildlife through an amendment to the IGA. And that money, as Katie said, arrived in October. We had a site meeting with our contractor. He should be back at the park in the next week or two to do the installation of the final rock structures, 4 rock points and 2 double rock deflectors. Also, they'll be doing some additional invasive removals and native seeding along the park road off the Broadway entrance around that first curve. And then the contractor will still remain under contract through 2021 to fulfill the vegetation maintenance portion. And that will then go to when the IGA expires at the end of 2021. On the CLP rehab project, we're kind of winding down our work with Stark. The landscape contractor will remain on site to complete their planting in the spring and conduct maintenance for the next 3 years. Since the last board meeting, Stark's completed the soil lift along the Park Road and installed the new outlet control structure last week and completed most of the seating plaza area along Broadway Avenue. Work is continuing with the landscaping subcontractor on seating and placement of the erosion control blanket. The contractor finished tree and shrub planting in the last couple of weeks as well. And Stark is also continuing to work on the new access for our new boat dock. The new small pavilion that's up towards Carl Hospital was delivered to the site today and should be installed by the end of this week. Keith from our staff has also begun installation of the new playground. And I did want to provide an update on our construction contingency funds where we stand currently. We've authorized 2 change orders up to this point, and we are working on a third that's near being finalized. The first change order authorized the additional sanitary district work and adjusted our soil disposal location, and that amounted to $62,500. 38,000 of that is funded through the sanitary district through the IGA. And change order 2 authorized additional sediment removal and then revised the storm outlet at the fairgrounds and included additional grading at the corner of Park and Broadway for an amount of $8,900. Change order 3, once we finalize it, will then actualize the cost for the sediment quantity that was removed, provided for additional topsoil, relocated one of our hydrodynamic separators, cleaned a storm drain, and adjusted pricing based on actual quantities that varied from the bid sheet. And we are anticipating this change order to amount to approximately $97,000. That will adjust our board authorized construction contingency from the original $371,300 to approximately $240,000, what we'll have remaining on that. Katie, if you can let me share screen if you haven't yet. Okay, thank you. I do have some pictures to show as usual. Okay, so this is that seating plaza area off Broadway. They've have all the stone placed here. This is a walk that will be colored, and then there'll be concrete in the center here that will have a stamp relief that'll look kind of like natural stone. And this is kind of a normal view I show every month, is standing at the top of the water makeup feature. And we've authorized them to redo this concrete path here that goes down towards the bridge. And they've actually integrated some color into this concrete to kind of get it a warmer look that matches a lot of our block around the park. And this is from the similar area, but looking towards the south. This is an OSLAD amenity, the accessible path that has colored concrete to the stone fishing outcropping. And then kind of a normal view I like to do to present at the board meetings from Memorial Bridge looking towards the west. You can see a lot of the blankets been installed at this point. And this was taken probably about a week ago when Stark was still working on the soil lift. You can see in the far background there. This is just a little closer view of that soil lift. They finished this last week and they're working on the other soil lift that's kind of near the lake house on the eastern side of the parking area there. And this is Keith's work of installing the playground and his progress to this point. And then to keep bragging on Keith, I actually included a couple other pictures from a different site. If you remember, we were installing a permanent customer service kiosk at the bottom of the ramp. So in this picture, in the next picture, you'll see 2 angles for that new customer service kiosk, and then one of the 3 new shade structures that we had installed in September. And then here's the view looking from the other direction.
He did do a good job, didn't he?
Yeah, I think it looks really good.
It does.
Okay. Well, unless there's any questions, that's all I had for the update portion tonight.
Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
No, it's just that I just wanted to bring up a question that I was talking with somebody in the community who was praising all the work that's going on at Crystal Lake Park, but had a question about the water access, right? And so we are intentionally creating more access to the water, but had raised concerns about people actually getting in the water and with the water quality issues. So how are we managing that, or planning to in the future, I guess?
Well, I think we'll still have our signage to not allow people in the water, but other than that, have a native buffer that will be, it'll make it look a little more different than it is right now, where now it looks like it all just slopes right down to the water. There will be, vegetation along most of those areas where you see that blanket, so that will help deter people from walking through. But the stone outcroppings get people closer for fishing or just relaxing near the water. And short of putting up fencing, I don't know how we could physically stop someone from getting in, but we'll just have to sign and post that it's not allowed.
We have our attack geese.
Yeah, we will have fewer points of potential access because of the naturalized shoreline. Of course, there'll be times in the year when we'll burn it off. And so at that point, there'll be more open access. But currently, or prior to our work, there were a multitude of places people could have gotten in the water, and in fact did. I think Corky was having an all-staff meeting at the lake house shortly after a blue-green algae bloom, and there was a guy who was in there swimming with his dog, and so.
That's correct. I couldn't believe he was in that yucky water.
Did his skin stay on?
Yeah, he got out. All I had to do was holler at him. He got out.
Whoa.
I want to just mention the soil lifts to you all. The place that Andy showed the picture of is near the sanitary district bridge. And that spot, as they were doing their work, made us especially nervous just because it looked so very steep. And that's the intention of the soil lifts, is it's a way to stabilize a steeper slope. They're sort of these soil tacos that you have a wrap of coconut fiber as well as a permanent erosion blanket to help to hold the soil in place. And darned if it doesn't look a whole lot more less steep and severe now that they're in. And the other ones that are going in near the lake house where the pier was off of the east lot, I think will have the same effect. So just if you're curious why that treatment looks different than elsewhere, that's what that is. It's a treatment for a steeper embankment.
Meredith, I would expect some learning curve. So probably messaging, communicating, signage, new plantings. I think it is better because we have controlled access, where before it was pick a point and you could easily get to it, minus the overgrowth. So certainly we'll take cues and listen to the public. If there's needs out there, let us know.
Any other questions or comments? Well, great things happening there in Crystal Lake. It's really, really nice to see that moving forward the way it has. Ready to move on to the executive director's report?
Sure. Thank you, Michael. Let's see, starting out, just want to thank all of the staff. We're kind of doing our fall work. Every group is really working hard. Got a lot of things going. Obviously, it's a slippery slope if you start mentioning staff, so I won't. But just in general, everybody's really contributing a lot. Again, kind of working through this next layer of mitigation. It's always going to be challenging, but we keep doing what we do. We had a terrific staff. It wasn't a fall retreat because we couldn't have our fall retreat, but we had a all staff meeting in the fall, and we did some updates. And want to thank Katie. She put together a really fun trivia game. Everybody had a really good time, and wasn't the same as spending half a day together or most of a day, but at least we had some fun, and I think everybody seemed to enjoy it. You'll notice the You Belong Here report. Again, it was our second report. I don't think staff intends to go through the entire report. Certainly if there's questions of the board, let us know, but it's really everybody's contribution, and we are taking a fairly liberal approach. If it's making an impact, making an inroad, making a difference, we want to report on it. What we like about it is it kind of encapsulates everything that at least happened within that roughly a month. And if somebody asked, hey, what's going on? We'd have a little better paper trail that we could pull things together and certainly share it. So we look forward to that.
Tim, I have a question about it.
Yeah, please do.
So I think it would be helpful if there were maybe some guiding principles at the front of the report, because in the beginning, as I was reading it, I felt like, oh yeah, all this stuff makes sense. And then towards the end, I felt it wasn't clear what the inroads they were necessarily in, you know, I kind of see that it's yes, you belong here, but a lot of the emphasis is on social justice or diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so some of the events are regularly scheduled events, and so that we were already doing. And so I think that I was struggling to make the specific connection. So I don't know, I was just thinking like if there were guiding principles or something, just even for me as I'm reading the report to remind me what we're including, I think that could be really helpful. Yeah,
good idea. Yeah, I think it's a very good question. You know, almost everything we do is outreach to somebody, but being more intentional and at least making that clear. Other questions about the report?
I was just going to comment on Meredith. I don't think our intent was to just provide new things that we're doing. It's just to make sure everyone's aware of all the things that we're doing per month. I mean, we can certainly change that, but it wasn't intended to be, this is all new stuff. So.
Right, that's why I think it's helpful to remind people like me.
Right.
And others, right, because this is a public document, what the guiding principles are behind this specific report.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Got it.
We can do that. Yes, let us know if you have other thoughts or ideas about that. Again, it's evolving, so I'm sure once we get things really fine-tuned and kind of get into a groove, it'll start serving us really well. Continuing on, just wanted to mention that CUSR had a terrific cupcake race. Really pleased with that event. It's really growing. I think when Grace came to UPDAC, she shared at least, I think there were over 150 people registered at that point, and we had a number of others that followed up. So as far as a fundraiser, I think it's really taken hold and people look forward to it. I was just mentally comparing it to the old golf outing we used to do year after year, and just how expensive and difficult and challenging. And, you know, it started to drop off as less people play golf. It was harder to push. It's nice to see that running and walking and rolling are still what people like to do. And so I think more opportunities in that area. Let's see, moving on. We had a great IAPD legal symposium last week. We typically learn a lot of different things. Obviously with the COVID virus, there was more information related to that, touching on OMA and FOIA issues. Certainly learning more about case studies of other districts is eye-opening and certainly educational. And let's see, lastly, I thought one of the last presentations on ADA and service animals was really interesting. I learned that companion animals are not the same as a service animal, and there are some differences and restrictions on that. So that was informative, as was the whole symposium. Health and wellness fundraising continues. I think everyone in the steering committee is making new contacts, really enjoying working with CCS, and hope to have some new announcements on some, hopefully, large donations in the near future. Today we had our Kickapoo Rail Trail State Planning and Research Grant update from RPC with the executive team, the main partners, minus the U of I staff and Carl staff. It was the local governments. They've done a terrific job on that report, and I think we're heading into our next public input session, so we'll keep you all appraised of that. Very exciting plan. Again, just reminding people those are long-term, usually piecemeal, kind of phased approach, but overall it would totally change Urbana, no doubt about that. Had a wonderful meeting with the Blair Park group today. A lot of really nice design refinements. Areas that were just a little clunky or tricky got smoothed out. I think the whole site flows really, really well. kudos to the planning staff here for leading that and enjoying working with Upland Design. They're doing a great job. iPark's fall meeting, just a quick mention. We're extending our exemplary district rate freeze. That was a very popular program. Basically what it does, it holds your rate for a 3-year period if you have a clean record or within a limited number of exposures. For the districts that are working really hard on safety and trying to keep the public safe, that's a small benefit. So we heard a lot of feedback from our membership. Keep doing that. And so we have the resources to do that. And so we're going to be extending that. From IAPD, I just want to pass on, Peter Murphy is asking any of our board members if they would be at all interested in serving on an IAPD committee. Obviously, they would love to have Urbana commissioners involved. Getting people downstate is a challenge, we know that. But I'd say in the age of Zoom, meetings are much more accessible today. And my prediction is they'll probably stick with formats like that because they'll probably have increased participation. But he asked me if I'd extend a personal invitation. If you're interested in what committees, let me know, or we can reach out to Peter's staff and if you have an interest in that. And then lastly, just wanted to touch, Nancy had reached out and had asked just for a little update on our positions that we are filling. I'll mention the one that is in administration, and then I think Derek will update us on operations. And then I want to have Corky talk about what we're calling our 4th position. It's not budgeted or planned for, but it's something in the kind of discovery, kind of imagination area. As we all know, Ellen has announced a retirement. So we'll be looking to replace our development manager. I think we've met a number of times on kind of the skills that we think we need in this kind of areas of work. Katie and I are working on a position description, and we hope to get that pulled together in the near term so that we can get that out and start trying to attract. We also would like to work with potentially another provider to give us some review on maybe how we can expand our pipelines and attract a wider diverse group. Chris Artefio is another consultant we've had conversations with. We're still trying to pinpoint what direct services we really want to do, but at least some sort of review or conferencing to see if there's better places we can advertise, words or sections we can include that might help attract, a different group of applicants. Derek, I know you have a couple of positions. Did you want to update us on those?
We've got 2 vacancies in operations. One's a grounds maintenance technician. The other is a facilities maintenance technician position. As I indicated in my You Belong Here report to the board, we talked with both those supervisors about trying to do all that we can to promote their opportunities for a diverse pool of applicants to apply. And as Tim mentioned, looking at some of our position descriptions, but also the interview questions and the rubrics we've developed to try to facilitate more opportunities for diverse applicants for those 2 positions. Been talking with the chairs of the You Belong Here matrix about places we might advertise. There's a program at Parkland called SWIFT, which is a program that we think we can promote these positions towards. And want to do even more research on where in the community we can reach out. Chris, the consultant Tim mentioned, is based out of the Indianapolis area, so she may not know as much about our area, but we have a lot of networks established where we can begin to advertise these positions and really try to encourage a more diverse applicant pool and hopefully hire an applicant that more closely represents the diversity of our community.
Great, thank you. As I mentioned, Recreation's been talking about a potential position. Again, it's more in the idea formulation. Corky, why don't you give us a little update on that?
Yeah, it's a lot in the ideas. As far as the actual name, I mean, I think it falls more in like the community relations coordinator type role. And what I mean by that is, looking for volunteers, looking for employment, finding ways to interact more. I mean, we are doing a great job with the 2 staff we have in outreach and wellness as far as getting into community neighborhoods. But this position could be helpful with that. But most importantly, I mean, I think Ellen will be the first one to tell you in her role, she has had a hard time spending a lot of time on getting volunteers and signing us up for job fairs. We do participate in a lot of job fairs, but those job fairs we hear about in like 2 days, and it's an all-out call to everybody in recreation who can make it. So trying to be more proactive and get out into not only all areas of Urbana, but on campus and in Champaign when they're doing job fairs. Job fairs and volunteers kind of go hand in hand. You can find the volunteers at those job fairs as well, especially the ones on campus. And there's just a lot of roles that we can do better if we have a person who's designated to go out and do these positions. A lot like Derek and what we're looking to do with Ellen's job is also look at how we can make that position be more like our community and help represent our community more. So that is in the works still, again, very early in the stages, but is a need that we have. I think it's going to be a bigger need as we come out of COVID, trying to fill these 135, 140 aquatic jobs and all the other jobs that we have. It's going to be tough getting back into the full stream. And I think this would be really good in that for that role, but also when it comes to outreach, it can give us another hand to get out in the community. So that's the nutshell of where it's coming from. And we're working on, all the specific details and all the other roles that that position will play. But it kind of came about in the fact of when we were looking and reviewing what Ellen does and what we want that position to be able to do in the future. And, what tasks really aren't being taken care of at a level that they need to be. And, that could also come into sponsorships. A lot of managers go out and get sponsorships now because we've kind of adapted to what we need to do. Doesn't mean this position will do it. It may mean another role from another staff member at the district, but those are things that we're trying to figure out what's the best way to not just fill a position, but let's fill it to a high capacity so that we can make sure that we're making inroads on all the needs that we have in the current structure. So that's it in a nutshell.
A good nutshell. One last thing I think I skipped over, my pickleball update. Corky and I had a conference call with Joe DeLuce at Champaign Park District. Champaign is very interested. They have a lot of interested pickleball players, indoor and outdoor. So they're actually considering the potential of maybe an indoor type facility. Questions I had is the current indoor tennis facility up on North Mattis area, is that adaptable? And it is not. There's kind of divide between tennis playing and pickleball playing, and that's strictly tennis. So we shared our approach. We're really focused at probably some outdoor courts converted at Blair Park, the South courts. We think that would at least get us a number of outdoor, courts that are at our main tennis facility, and we can certainly observe and see where we go from there. There is indoor pickleball at Brookins, so there's some avid players that take advantage of that. But it's pretty clear that we're not at that level where we would need to think of a facility. It was good discussion. We talked about other shared opportunities, so I think those are always good discussions to have from time to time, and wherever it could work, certainly we'd be interested in seeing what we could do.
Being optimistic, should also mention, once the health and wellness facility is built,
right,
we will have a lot more indoor courts than what we have available at this point at Brookins. Right.
So stay tuned, and I can answer any questions if you have any on the report.
Is the joint meeting for CUSR a Zoom meeting? It wasn't listed.
It is, and I thought it was a Michael's report. I didn't know if I should.
Okay.
Yes, we do have
it will be.
Meeting.
You mentioned the Kickapoo Rail Trail meeting today, and
yep,
wanted to make sure that the board's aware that we're planning on bringing the plan to them for review and acceptance at is it the December board meeting, Tim?
It's at the study session, so for the acceptance part, we may have add that to the board agenda, but I think it's scheduled for the study session, so we have a little more time. Mm-hmm. Great. That's all I had, Michael.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tim, and everyone else. Moving on then to the president's report and covering some future meetings. UPDAC meeting earlier this month due to Thanksgiving. So November 17 is the UPDAC meeting, and that is on Zoom. As Derek already mentioned, study session on December 1, the KRT updates and the SPR grant. Then December 3rd is the joint CUSR joint board meeting with Champaign. And that too, we don't have to truck all the way across to West Champaign to do that, which is nice. So some advantages to Zoom perhaps.
Right.
And then on December 8th, regular board meeting, also on Zoom. We'll be doing goals, reviewing action to accept annual meeting calendar, an example which was in the packet tonight, action to abate property taxes for the alternate revenue source bonds. This is just an annual action that we have to take. And review and accept priority projects report for the Urbana Parks Foundation. And closing on our annual bond sale, which we hope to get good news on. And lastly, approving updates to the safety manual. So that's December meeting is going to be a busy one, but I think a lot of good things that we can get accomplished there. Beyond that, I did not have any specific report. We move on to liaison reports, and the finance study group, in fact, did not meet last Friday as we had been originally scheduled. I believe that's been pushed back to the 4th of December, if I'm recalling correctly. So we've had either tonight or at the study session last week, anything that we covered in the last finance study group meeting. So UPDAC, the UPD policy study group. Is there anything update there?
No, we have not met.
Okay. And the Parks Foundation representative, Roger.
Well, most plans are still up in the air at this point, figuring out what's happening with COVID. We are having a virtual toast to celebrate on Thursday evening to celebrate the successful completion of the campaign for the next century. We achieved our goal, and that's a good thing. If you haven't signed up, I think it's too late. Today was the deadline for signing up for the virtual toast. So hopefully all of our commissioners are on that. We'll see. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Roger. And UPDAC planning study group, I gather you were meeting this evening, is that right?
Yes, we met prior to the board meeting, worked on topic related items for the first half of 2021. The chairman Cedric will be working with the park staff to go over some other topic items that we talked about. He will send Nancy and I a draft for us to look at, and hopefully we can confirm some topics for the first 6 months for 2021.
Great. Thank you, LaShonda. Any other questions or comments there? Okay, then I guess we're ready to move on to old business. And the first item there is action to approve our tax levy ordinance for 2020 and tax levy ordinance 2020-10, which was the subject of our public hearing earlier in the meeting.
I don't have any further comments about the tax levy. I think we spent a long time discussing it at the last board meeting when the commissioners were deciding on a rate. So the final tax levy is for $8,500,000. And the black box ran in the newspaper on October 29th, which is required by the Truth in Taxation Act as part of Illinois state law. So if you have any questions, happy to answer them. I don't think we received any calls or concerns from citizens, but I do know that Tim said he had a discussion at the foundation about the black box, but isn't that right, Tim?
Yes, I did have one call, but it was somebody I knew that I could explain it to, and he works in local government too, so I think he understood it.
Okay. Actually, I introduced the tax levy situation to the foundation just in case that they run into that as their fundraising. And then when I did not completely explain it, Tim bailed me out, so I appreciated that.
Well, I'm gonna work on getting some information at least in Tim's hands, because he's really the one that gets the calls, so that he feels empowered to be able to respond and just going in the future. So he kind of help make sure he has, he's really great at responding, but just making sure he has all that information. And in the past, MTD or somebody related to MTD wrote a really great article in the News Gazette maybe 2 years ago. And I think I snipped it, and I'm gonna get a copy of that to Tim as well. It was a really good article that helped explain the levy and the process, and it's tough to get your head around. But for any public that may be watching from home, the levy is a very early step in the process of finalizing the tax extension for local taxing entities. And at the time that the district is required to pass an ordinance for the levy, we don't have all of the information. Mostly we don't know the final EAV, and that's a number that we won't know. The equalized assessed value of the property of the district is not a number that we'll know until April. So we're kind of guessing in the dark about what our tax needs will be, what the amount we'll need to request is based on information we don't have yet. There's a lot of other factors and unknowns, including the hospital situation in our local community, that cause us to levy fairly high to account for any of those unknowns that may change before the levy is finalized in April.
And indeed, we don't really expect to be receiving $8,500,000.
Correct. And in the resolution memo that I wrote last month, I put a chart on the back page of the memo that shows what we requested versus what we actually received and the percent difference. And so most of the time we get 2 or 3% increase year to year. But this is, like I said, it's to account for those unknowns, some of which are quite large, that we cannot predict.
Well, I move, I was going to move to approve ordinance 2020-10, an ordinance providing for the levying, assessment, and collection of taxes for the fiscal year 2021-22 of the Urbana Park District.
Second.
Great. Well, that's been moved and seconded and maybe thirded as well. A little collision there. Is there any discussion or questions on the point? Hearing none, I would do a roll call vote, starting with Roger.
Aye.
LaShonda.
Aye.
Meredith.
Aye.
Nancy.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well, and that carries unanimously. So we have a tax levy ordinance in place. And thank you all. There was no old business removed from the consent agenda, so we are now on to new business. We've already dealt with the first item, which we moved further up in the agenda. So we're to item B under new business, action to assign the IAPD IPRA conference delegate credentials for the annual joint meeting.
It's that time of year again. We're getting ready for conference. As you know, it's a virtual conference this year, but we still have these bits of information to supply back to IAPD. I know I always am available and can serve in any way, but didn't know what the commissioner's schedules were for attending.
Do we have to pay to go when it's a Zoom conference?
Yes, there will be some cost. I don't know what the costs all are at this point, but we should be getting that information very soon.
Okay, if it's not, I mean, I would be happy to do that, but if you are going to already be there, Tim, it would seem to be more to make sense to me to save whatever registration cost there was if you're willing to do it. But I can certainly, if it's not such an extravagant cost.
I'm happy to, and we could certainly try to get the cost and share that with you all as well, if that's important.
But we still have to name somebody, right?
Well, so do we have then a motion to the effect of assigning Tim as our designated representative?
I move to certify that Tim Bartlett is designated to serve as delegate to the annual 2021 business meeting of the IAPD.
Do we need another person in case he has laryngitis or something horrible?
Typically, we usually have somebody, whether it's me or one of the other commissioners, be delegate or first alternate.
I'm happy to be first alternate if you want to put that into your motion.
And or Nancy Del Coleman.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or additional designations? Hearing none. Not all in favor. We got to do this roll call because of our remote attendance again. So starting with Roger.
Aye.
LaShonda.
Aye.
Meredith.
Aye.
Nancy.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So that is approved. We now have an introduction to the UPD Climate Action, Resiliency, Education, and Sustainability Plan.
We're very pleased to have staff here that is going to give us a little intro into our exciting new plans. So I'll turn it over to our co-chairs.
Thank you. So I think Kara is going to share her screen here. And I'm just going to start with a little introduction and background. My name is Savannah Donovan. I am the Green Team co-chair along with Kara Dudek. And I think we came and saw you recently and talked about some of our goals for this fiscal year. And top of that list is to develop a climate action plan for the Urbana Park District. Sustainability and climate action plans have been becoming a lot more popular. So I hope that, this is not a brand new concept to some of you, but if it is, I'll just really briefly explain these types of plans. Depending on their focus, they can focus on decreasing carbon footprints, improving natural areas and biodiversity, increasing community resilience from the effects of climate change. So these types of plans come in a lot of different flavors, and we've sort of been experimenting with, you know, what is the right fit for us here at Urbana Park District. Even though we're only in the planning stages, we have been receiving a lot of community support. So our peers in the Champaign County Climate Coalition are very excited. You may have heard that the University of Illinois just recently released their plan, and the city of Urbana has one. So, you know, they're excited for the Urbana Park District to kind of join this community movement as well. And then just in talking about this at the annual summit for the Association of Nature Center Administrators, or ANCA, they were so intrigued by our process that they asked me to write an article for them. And so I've already gotten a lot of great feedback from you know, even that further group. And as you know, Urbana Park District has a long history of environmental education and stewardship. It just seems that, you know, for us to stay on the forefront of this movement, you know, we want to be a leader in our community. The time for a formal plan of action is now. So we have on the screen here the Urbana Park District mission statement, and, you know, it just, everything in the CARES plan, you know, really seems to relate to what we have at the heart of our mission: improving the quality of life of our citizens, pursuing excellence in programs, conservation, and community health. You know, those are all things that are going to be part of this plan. So far, my co-leader and I, Kara and I, have started a steering committee, and we are meeting monthly just to work on this development of the plan. We've conducted some interviews of external advisors, so people who have conducted these types of plans, you know, put them together, or maybe they're in charge of implementing plans like these. And from these interviews, we've been able to learn a lot about the successes of other organizations in addressing climate change. So we are just here tonight for a really quick introduction to the plan and to open the floor for questions. But we will be back to hopefully present the final plan and ask for acceptance in March of 2021. So that's our timeline. We'd like to have this released to the community by Earth Day of 2021. And with that, I'm gonna let Kara take it away, and then of course, feel free to ask us questions.
Thanks, Savannah. So to be honest, I'm kind of bummed that I ruined the surprise about what the acronym meant by putting it on the agenda. But I guess Nancy and Roger had already seen this at Natural Areas Committee and UPDAC, so maybe it's not that big of a surprise. But as you read, CARES stands for Climate Action, Resilience, Education, and Sustainability. And that just encompasses not only everything that we want to do with the environment, but it also layers another bit of messaging about how we feel about our community and the environment, and saying that just that we care and we know it's important, and everything about the environment and sustainability and human health is important to improve upon and protect. And so actually just this afternoon, I also went through an NRPA training called Climate for Health. And it really focuses on ways to connect climate change to the local environment in a way that means something. So the ice caps and the polar bears appeal to a small number of people, but when you talk about human health and the asthma of your children, or the flooding of your basement, or tornadoes and things like that, it really brings it down to a value system that is meaningful for the Urbana community. And so it kind of takes what was scary and maybe overwhelming, and it changes it to be something that we can do something about, and it's actually in our community. So I also wanted to talk quickly about the plan pillars. There's 3 of them that we've developed so far: communicating climate action, protecting and strengthening our natural environment, and conserving resources. And communicating climate action is internal and staff, but it's also external in our partnerships with the community. And really, we want to be a community leader for these different things. And so we want to educate people on what they can. Sorry, it appears my dog wants to talk to the board. So our environmental education and how we, and how we protect vulnerable populations and how we advocate for our community and our community's health is communicating climate action. And we often talk to our Climate Coalition group about creating positive peer pressure in a way that we're doing something, you know, maybe we're making our fleet of vehicles more electric or hybrid. And so then maybe the city of Urbana or the county or someone else or another entity starts to also do those things. And we just continue to be a leader, and we continue to impress upon each other how important it is to be environmentally conscious. The second pillar, protecting and strengthening our natural environment, talks about the air that we breathe and our water systems, the pollutants that humans can put into the water and the air and the environment, and really how we need the environment, and we are part of the whole environmental process, and it's important to just protect it for human sake and health, but also, of course, for continuing to have biodiversity and just an overall strong environment. And then conserving resources is what you may think of when you hear about climate action. So that's like lighting and energy savings, water savings, recycling, and waste. You know, trying to reduce the waste that the Urbana Park District is putting into landfills. And so I just wanted to give a brief mention of the pillars, and, you know, we'll be coming back with more opportunities for input. We're gonna create a questionnaire for UPDAC and the community, and of course, hear board feedback, but really we're here just to give a very initial introduction into the CARES plan.
Are there any questions, comments for staff? I'll start out by just saying we're so excited. The team that's working on this is in really good hands with our leaders. It's very timely. And I personally really appreciate the practical aspects of, you know, we're trying to find ways that meet people's needs in their life. There's a lot of information out there, and some of it isn't all that, you know, it might be scary or off-putting or created enough distance people don't want to get engaged. And I think that was something this team came together right away with. How do we get Urbana involved? What can we do to attract people? And how do we sell this in a positive way? And I think we're on really good approach here, and I think we'll have a fantastic report.
I want to thank you both for the work you've already done on this. But what really makes me happy is to think of the Urbana Park District as being an area leader in advocating for this. I think that says a lot of good things about the Urbana Park District, and I think it puts us in a position where we can have an impact.
Yeah, thank you, Roger. I agree.
And I hope as you're working this out that you will be attempting to communicate that a lot of this is likely to be thinking smarter how we do things and not necessarily spending more money, that you can do good things without running up a huge bill.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Well, in a lot of ways, you're actually conserving resources. So not only are we conserving energy and water, but we're also conserving money by doing things differently and, you know, alternative forms of energy, using less energy, things like that.
We look forward to updates and having you come back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments? Or are we ready to move on to the 2020 ADA transition plan update?
Great, thank you, Michael. I think Kara's here. She's going to walk us through the updates, and just wanted to mention we're very fortunate to have a great staff team and Kara's leadership on this as well, keeping us, making sure that all of our facility sites are accessible. We know there's a lot of information out there, it changes. I think we've talked with you all about a future plan update. Kara may even touch on that, but we look forward to this year's report and all the good things coming.
Thanks, Tim. So this is actually the 6th year that I've talked to you about the ADA transition plan, which makes me feel like time is actually flying by. Although I'm happy to report that we've accomplished a lot. Every year I come and talk to you about what barriers that we've addressed in our ADA transition plan, and sort of where we're looking towards in the future. So our barriers that were identified in this plan were over 700, and I'm happy to report that as of this year, we're at about 47.5% of those barriers addressed, which is a really big deal. It means that not only are we working on things on our transition plan, but as we build new projects or change things, we're looking at ways that we can incorporate accessibility into those. And so we're sort of from both ends working on what we have and creating new things that address some of these barriers to accessibility. And so in my memo, I talked about primarily Crystal Lake Park. There were also some barriers addressed at the Nature Center, and that was when the gift shop was redone, some counter heights and maneuvering spaces were addressed there. But with all the work happening in Crystal Lake Park, the playground, the boat dock, even the old makeup water feature were on the ADA transition plan. So with new playgrounds, we talk a lot about ground level play features that anyone can access, ways that you can transfer out of a wheelchair or a mobility device to get onto the playground and things like that. So all of our new playgrounds are way more up to speed and include a greater number of people in how they're able to play. I also just wanted to mention that I often talk about upcoming projects. So the work that we're going to be doing in Blair Park with the OSLAD grant is going to make so many amenities accessible and add new amenities. That's just going to be a complete change for that park. So, you know, we can have a playground or a t-ball field or bike racks or other amenities like horseshoes, but if there's no pathway to get there, then we're really making it difficult on some people or cutting out a whole portion of the population to use those things. Also with the Crystal Lake Park road work, we have a chance to address some deficiencies in the parking and bringing those up to speed. And then lastly, another place we're looking at will be the dog park. There's the water fountain's not accessible. There's no accessible benches, some of those amenities. And so we just look at where we can group some things together and really accomplish our overall goals of moving forward with our transition plan. But another big thing that I just wanted to talk about was that it's been about 10 years since we did the last transition plan, and I've started looking at other consultants to do another plan and bring a fresh look to it. And we've also, you know, with You Belong Here and all the things we strive to do, we're constantly adding new amenities, even 2 new facilities since the last plan with the outdoor pool and planning and operations. So I just think it's time to get a fresh look and to work with a new consultant. And I've done some reference calls on a new consultant for our ADA plan, and she just had glowing reviews and was very responsive and gives us a product that is much easier to work with than an Excel document that has almost 800, you know, different deficiencies on it. So it could be a map, or it can be a database you search. It can provide you with cost estimates so we can better plan for our ADA upgrades. But overall, I'm just really excited about the opportunity to learn from someone new, because just about 2 years ago, I became the ADA coordinator, and I feel like there's always more to learn or more to know. And I think there's opportunities for staff training and a bunch of other just wonderful things if we embark upon a new ADA transition plan.
Kara, have the rules changed since the initial study that we did 10 years ago, or has that stayed pretty much the same?
There have been some changes, and mostly there wasn't a lot as much out there for parks and things like trails, like nature trails. And so this consultant, I actually found out about at the NRPA conference in Indianapolis, and parks and park facilities are her specialty. Mm-hmm. So I think that point of view is going to be valuable.
Good. So it won't be like starting all over again with a whole bunch of different rules. That was
right.
My concern. Yeah, great.
It's really good information, Kara. We really appreciate it.
Oh, this is good information. Did I miss anywhere? What is there a ballpark kind of figure for the expense magnitude of generating a new report with a consultant?
Not yet, just because there's so many things we could do. So for example, she could train me to do some of the smaller parks and assess those on my own. She could look at every parking facility and that would take a lot more time. She can help us with policies. And so I think that now that we've done reference checks, we'll talk to her and see what she can offer and what we need, and then start to narrow in on a number. So she couldn't even really give me a ballpark because she's just so thorough with how she looks through all of the different amenities, starting with our website and then coming on site. So not yet.
Michael, I thought our last plan was in the neighborhood of 30,000, and I thought we did it kind of jointly with Champaign. I don't know if Corky remembers or.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to comment. It was between 30 and 35.
Yeah.
So. But again, that was 10 years ago, but it also was kind of taking all the new guidelines and doing a full thorough audit of every park facility that we have. So I'm excited to hear, what Kara can do. I think the good thing with the last plan is our staff, and Kara obviously is an expert by now, but all the learning that we've done over the years and the pre-planning we've done, I'm really interested to see, how that plays a part in the next steps with this new consultant. And John McGovern was our consultant in the first project, and he's definitely an expert. It's just a matter of how well he disperses the knowledge. Some people have different opinions on how he does it, so it'd be interesting to use a new perspective and a different consultant and see where it ends up. But yeah, it was in the $30,000 to $35,000 range back then.
Well, I would say I like the idea of getting enough training to pull some of this in-house, as well as getting the outside perspective.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it reminds me of our discussion with Fred Coleman earlier, where we'll develop some skills to be able to do a lot of this work ourselves, but still have a resource to go to when we have questions. A surprising amount of this is, it's not real clear. There's a lot of interpretation that goes on with some of these different deficiencies. And we've continued to message with our previous consultants when we've had uncertainty. And even then, the direction we get isn't always real clear and lucid. So I'm trying to develop and broaden our expertise base for people we can talk to when we have these questions will be helpful in the future.
Yeah, I think the fact that the guidelines are not brand new and fresh helps as well. I think there's a lot of that misinterpretation by consultants 10 years ago. It was new. So when Kara would have a question for John. He would interpret it one way. You talk to another consultant and be interpreted another in some cases. So now that the guidelines are not new, while there might, you know, like Kara mentioned, there was really no guidelines for trails at that time. They hadn't passed them yet. So, you know, just having that 10 years of perspective from different consultants working on these ADA audits, I think will be helpful.
I think a new perspective hardly ever hurts too.
Right.
Just going to add to close it out. You know, ADA is super important. We know that it makes a difference of somebody being able to, you know, operate or get to a place, but it's not the only principle. We still rely on good design, universal design access, age-friendly principles. So I think you can count on this staff to roll it all up and bring the best game.
Any other questions or comments on that? Well, very much looking forward to seeing how this plays out. That takes us now to our garden action plan and organic garden program review.
Great. I think we have Judy Miller and Chelsea Brawl here to give us some updates on the garden report. Turn it over to you guys.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm excited to provide an update on our organic garden action plan. As you may recall, back in November of 2019, the Urbana Park District hired Campfire Concepts to facilitate focus groups and conduct research into the Meadowbrook and Victory Park organic garden programs. Using this information, we were able to identify some shortcomings and opportunities towards the future of the program. And in spring of 2020, a garden action plan was developed to implement multiple changes and improvements throughout the 2020 season and subsequent seasons as well. That plan and a written update on the progress that we've made towards this plan has been provided to you all, I believe, in the board packet. But I do want to highlight some key objectives of the action plan, which we have implemented so far. We had some soil testing performed by Agricultural Soil Management, and we're able to present those results to gardeners during a free program at the Nature Center. In response to those findings, we provided manure and compost free to all of our gardeners throughout the 2020 season. We also were able to evaluate some garden plots at Meadowbrook that maybe weren't as successful. And then a total of 8 were taken out of commission this year, some infested by mugwort, others used as spaces to house soil amendments for gardeners. And then we also provided some relevant outreach to the gardeners about the persistent weeds, including the mugwort. One being a video sent to all the gardeners with information about how to manage that. And I really think we see a really big improvement on specifically the mugwort infestation that we had at the gardens from last year. So it's nice to see those efforts towards the end of the season to be successful. The garden season did begin in March, and that's really when we began to see COVID-19 affect UPD programming. Everyone was very grateful that the garden program itself was able to continue, but we did have to cancel a lot of our outreach and programs, which did put a wrench in some of the aspects of the garden action plan. All programs and workshops were canceled, including a managing mugwort workshop, a scheduled open house that we had to really try to connect the community with the gardeners, a returning garden or a mentor program. We were hoping to allow our returning gardeners to hook up with returning gardeners to help our new gardeners through their first season and help them be successful. But that has been put on hold as well. And another one that was really bummed to see get canceled was a volunteer work day for gardeners to utilize some college students from the university to help maybe till up some of their soil or put some amendments in their soil, put up their fencing. That was scheduled in April, and we did have a group ready to work with us, and that was canceled as well. Additionally, we did have a few gardeners drop out of the program due to the pandemic, so we did see that effect also. I do want to mention another objective, though, that part of the Garden Action Plan was to identify needs in the community and alternative ways to use plots to fit those needs. And in May of 2020, the Urbana Park District joined the Solidarity Garden CU initiative in order to address food disruptions and insecurity in the community during the pandemic and beyond. The initiative really needed garden space to succeed, and the UPD was able to provide 11 plots at Meadowbrook and 6 at Victory towards this initiative. And so since the launch of it in June, approximately 600 pounds of produce was donated to different organizations during the 2020 growing season. And the CU Solidarity Gardens utilized about 1,000 square foot of community garden spaces altogether. And all 17 plots at Meadowbrook and Victory Park were all planted in and harvested. The report that you all received also has a table that I'm going to have Judy Miller talk a little bit more about. Judy?
Sorry, had to find my silence or unsilence button. Thank you, Chelsea. So the garden program is a little difficult to compare from year to year for. Although the land may be the same size, how the gardens are used varies. And so to make it a little simpler, we went back to how the gardens were originally designed, which were 17 by 30 feet, full plots. And so 2 half plots would equal 1 full plot, and a perennial plot equals a 1 full plot as well. It varies from year to year depending on what people's needs are. If somebody doesn't want a full plot, then we will divide a plot up and give them a half plot. And so those numbers vary from year to year. And that's why when you see on the graph, the numbers for how many plots there were and how many gardeners there were for half plots are the same, because that's the need that was expressed for that year. There's also gardens that we have taken out of commission for a variety of reasons over the years. For example, when the parking lot was expanded and completed, we took a whole section of the gardens out that used to be on the northwest side of the gardens. When we did the new path at the Hickman Wildflower Trail, there were some gardens that had to be modified or changed because of that project. And so to compare the garden program from 20 years ago or 35 years ago is a little difficult to do. What we also did this past year, as Chelsea noted, is there were some gardens that were taken out of commission because of the mugwort, or because they were used for storage for amenities of the compost and manure that allowed access for the gardeners to get to that. In the past, that type of item was, the amenities were stored on the east side of the gardens in a weedy patch of the park, but now that we've have been restoring the Hickman Wildflower Trail, that isn't available. It also was an area that flooded pretty regularly and people had problems accessing it. So we moved that to the front of the park by the parking lot and took a couple plots out for there. And then the Solidarity Gardens, as Chelsea mentioned, were gardens that were not used historically over the last several years. And so when that program came to us looking for space, we gave them some underused space in the gardens, and they are not represented in that graph or in that table as well. We have seen over the years, a fluctuation in gardens. This is one of the things I'm hoping to take a look at, is to really compare as much as we can, apples to apples or carrots to carrots or whatever, to see you know, over the years, did we see a number go up and then go back down for whatever reason? There are more availability of garden programs and garden resources for people. There's also the CSA has become much more popular. Years ago, there was only 1 or 2 possible CSAs that people could join, and now there's more of those in the community. And so the access generally for the public for fresh grown, locally sourced produce is more available. So, you know, what was hard was we had, I give a lot of credit to Chelsea. She came up with some really creative ways to try to meet the needs of what gardeners are saying they needed. And then COVID happened and we couldn't really do anything about that. And so we will try to offer those kind of services as the years go on, and to build on those as well. Chelsea, did I forget anything?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you for going over that chart or that table, Judy. But yeah, I would like to hear if anyone has any questions for us or anything they would like to add.
I'd like to say that I think it's a great idea to have a flag go up when the garden supervisor is there. What a beautifully simple solution.
Thank you. I will definitely look to getting something like that added onto the kiosk.
Yeah, it was really gratifying that when we had to cancel everything, Chelsea was still getting requests for gardens into June, which is not very common. Usually about the middle of May is when we stop getting requests for gardens and we start discounting gardens. She did offer discount prices to current garden members when we got into the middle of June. But people were looking for some way to be outside when they were having to be quarantined. And so it was really great that we were able to offer this service when so much of our other programs and services had to be canceled.
And additionally, those volunteering in the Solidarity Gardens were primarily groups, some individuals, but a lot of groups would adopt into plots. So we had a couple churches, a United Pride Center had a plot themselves, and then sometimes just a group of friends that would be renting plots. So that also got a few people into Meadowbrook and into those garden areas during that time as they were volunteering for the Solidarity Gardens.
Well, I think you're doing a good job, Chelsea, and Judy. Thank you both for doing that. And as somebody who's researched the history of Meadowbrook Park, this situation has changed so much since those plots were first plowed in 1975, and it is really apples to oranges in comparing.
Thank you.
I saw on my screen that Charlie Smythe was trying to call in. Did he want? Have we missed an opportunity for him to speak?
Yes, he spoke in the public participation.
Right. Yes, I know, but I just
Yes.
at the bottom of my screen, I thought maybe he was phoning in to talk again. I
think he just wrote in the chat room.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's good. I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss anything he had to tell us.
Great. Thank you, guys. Good report.
Pleased to hear that. I assume then we are ready to move on to our review of annual board actions calendar.
Yes. As you noted in the agenda, there's no action required, but a listing of our monthly activities. Katie, I didn't know if you had any updates. No. Certainly we can arrange things differently if there's a problem or an issue or a concern. We pretty much try to follow the annual schedule of when things have to happen and plug them into their appropriate month.
Yeah, I think that's just an opportunity for the board to see the document and if they had any comments or concerns or questions. But you know, it's kind of loose anyway. It's not set in stone, and we do shift things around as needed anyway. So it's, you know, it's just a board guiding document. So just making sure you guys get a chance to see it every year.
Probably in the old days when there was more travel, it was more helpful to plan availability, but it's in the packet this month for your review.
And certainly it can be amended at any time during the year if we need to do so. But it is good to see it at least once a year laid out to be thinking forward. So if there are no comments or questions on that, I guess we can move on to action to approve the 2021 capital improvement budget and revisions for 2018, 19, and 20.
Okay, I can jump in here and begin to walk through our revisions, starting with the number 5 revision to 2018. You guys need me to zoom in a little bit more? Is this okay right here?
Great.
Okay. So we don't have a ton of revisions this time. Starting in 2018, you'll see the highlighted portions. We took funds from the mechanical replacement line and reallocated for design work associated with the museum grant. As we had mentioned at the study session last week, the mechanical replacement fund is adequately funded through 2019, 2020, and then what would be the 2021 capital budget years. The overall contingency has been reduced in this budget for expenditures that were related to that museum grant, work at Perkins in phase 3, improvements to Leal Park associated with the parking lot project. Moving to 2019, this is revision number 5 as well. We've adjusted revenues to reflect additional funds received in tributes and donations, CUSR, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, funding for the Rock Riffle project, the Saline Habitat Enhancement Project, grant money from the Illinois American Water for Crystal Lake Park. And then those are then reflected in the expenditure section in the center, and then the Crystal Lake lines adjusted in that section below. 2020, this is our first revision. We've adjusted revenues to account for increases from bond funds. Another Illinois American Water grant that was for planting at Meadowbrook Park, donations for a sculpture, and then the estate gift in the amount of $30,000. And those are reflected in that central expenditure section. We had a couple expenses out of the equipment area. The first was for replacement of a mower deck, and then the second was for the custodial van that we received last spring. And there'll be a smaller increase in contingency that's related to that increase in bond funds that we received for that year. Do we have any questions on revisions? And before I go to 2021 capital improvement budget? Okay. So I won't spend a lot of time going line by line in this. You know, I know we presented this in detail at last week's study session, as well as our 5-year capital plan. I would note that funds out of this capital year are geared towards the upcoming Blair Improvement Project. That's identified in the regular budget lines for trails and ADA. as well as $85,000 in improvements line below right here. Vehicles and equipment, we had $225,000. That was for replacement of a garbage vehicle, 2 3/4 ton pickup trucks, a wide area mower, and the replacement of a Gator utility vehicle. Our hardscapes and fencing budget is utilized to put money aside for improvements to the tennis court, likely in 2022, as well as our staff to engage for someone to do an evaluation of our hardscapes throughout the district to help us plan out a schedule for improvements that we can do in upcoming years. We have a Crystal Lake improvements, $150,000 that's going in the next few years, and last year as well. For 2021, we've identified improvements to lighting and funding associated with our local match for the recently submitted ITEP grant. And then I would note that we do have funds starting to go for Meadowbrook Prairie Play. This would be to engage with the design team to start evaluating preliminary plans for that future replacement of Prairie Play and improvements surrounding that playground area. Happy to answer any questions on the 2021 capital budget or any of our adjustments to previous years.
Yeah, I have a question, Andy. In our vehicle and equipment line, do you take into account the resale value of what we're getting rid of, what we're replacing?
Like trade-ins?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in that schedule, we have a column that's also the value of what we purchased it as. So then we can evaluate year to year how much we think that vehicle would cost or how much the replacement or the trade-in would be valued at as well. Work with our mechanic quite a bit as well too, and he stays pretty up to date on auction prices for vehicles and equipment and vehicles.
Okay, so we've taken into account the fact that we may be getting money back. So
yeah, we'll be trading in 2 trucks with the purchase of those 2 trucks.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So will we be? Does that mean we'll be spending more than $225,000, or that 225 has some of the trade-in values figured in?
I think if we get them auctioned, they appear as a separate revenue item. And if they're traded in, then it just goes off the overall expenditure that would show up in that expenditure section.
Okay, good, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve both the 2021 capital improvement budget and the revisions to the 2018, 2019, and 2020 capital improvement budget?
I move to approve the 2021 capital improvement budget and the revisions of the 2018, 2019, and 2020 capital improvement budgets.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or questions? Roll call vote is required for this, starting with Roger.
Aye.
Excuse me, LaShonda.
Aye.
Meredith.
Aye.
Nancy.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So that carries unanimously with all commissioners voting. We had no new business removed from the consent agenda, so we are on to our general comments from commissioners agenda item. Anybody have additional comments they want to make tonight?
I do. I just want to thank the entire Park District for all the hard work that you guys are doing and continue to do. Even in the midst of a pandemic, you guys are like movers and shakers and making things happen. And I know we've had some barriers along the way, but I'm just sitting here just throughout the whole entire meeting, like my heart is just smiling about the things that are progressing, projects, partnerships, just everything. And I just want to thank you guys for your hard work and dedication and perseverance through all of this. I know it hasn't been easy. Certainly, you know, COVID has kind of redirected us to do things a little bit differently, but you know, you guys have continued to be up for the challenge. I know for me personally, I've asked some tough questions, and I hope that no one has taken those questions personally. It is not my intention to, be direct towards anyone, but, obviously I have seen the growth. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for listening. First of all, listening, and reconvening, trying to figure out how can we continue to move forward, and still continue to do the great work that you do. But, I'm just thankful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll second that. It's amazing when you stop to think about, if you look at the reports that we got tonight of the variety of ways this park district is moving forward and then the different directions we're moving forward. Nobody seems to be anxious to just sit back and deal with the status quo. And I think it's terrific. I think, Tim, you're doing a really good job of leading that and inspiring the staff to look at ways that we can do better and serve the community better. I think that the citizens of Urbana should be extraordinarily thankful for the staff members that we have, because they are working very hard with those citizens' tax dollars.
Thank you. I think we all are.
Yeah. And it's obvious.
Well, and I would also like to interject, doing so, breaking through the silos a lot. The cross-departmental interactions that have gone into some of these things are very impressive, where people are not just trying to defend their own turf, they're really trying to make things better.
Takes the whole team.
Any other comments? Seeing no indication of that, we have now exhausted our agenda, and I'll be more than happy to declare us adjourned for the evening. Look forward to seeing you all soon.